You're not leadership material, Luca." Those words hit me like a punch to the gut as I sat across from Marcus Sterling, the regional director of Nexus Financial Solutions. At 36, I thought I'd finally earned my place at the table. I was wrong. My name is Luca Clay, and this is the story of how I discovered that the company I'd given 12 years of my life to had been systematically destroying careers, stealing bonuses, and covering their tracks with lies that would make your head spin. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. 12 years. That's how long I'd been grinding at Nexus Financial, working my way up from junior analyst to senior portfolio manager. 12 years of 70-hour weeks, missed family gatherings, and putting the company before everything else in my life. I was good at what I did. Damn good. My portfolio consistently outperformed the market by 15–20%. I'd brought in over $50 million in new client assets in the past 2 years alone. My clients trusted me, referred their friends, and several had specifically requested to work only with me. Yet here I was, watching Marcus promote Jennifer Walsh to the director position I'd been promised for the past 8 months. Jennifer, who'd been with the company for exactly 3 years. Jennifer, who'd never managed a portfolio over $5 million. Jennifer, who happened to be Marcus's golf partner's daughter.
"She brings fresh perspectives to the team," Marcus explained, not meeting my eyes. "Sometimes experience can make us too rigid in our thinking."
I sat there nodding like an idiot, swallowing my pride for the 100th time. The familiar taste of disappointment coating my mouth like copper pennies. "Of course, we value your contributions, Luca. You're a solid performer. Keep doing what you're doing." Solid performer. 12 years, and I was a solid performer. That night, I sat in my downtown Chicago apartment, staring at the city lights through my window. The same view I'd been staring at for years, waiting for my life to finally begin. Waiting for the promotion that would change everything. Waiting for recognition that apparently was never coming. My phone buzzed. A text from my younger sister, Emma. "How'd the promotion meeting go?" I turned off my phone without responding. The next few weeks were torture. Watching Jennifer stumble through meetings, asking basic questions about portfolio management, making decisions that I'd have to quietly fix behind the scenes to protect our clients. But it was during one of these damage control sessions that I noticed something odd. I was reviewing the Morrison account, a $12 million portfolio I'd been managing for 4 years, when the numbers didn't add up. According to my records, I should have earned a $48,000 bonus for the exceptional returns I'd generated. But my year-end statement showed only $31,000. I chalked it up to a clerical error and made a note to ask accounting about it. But then I noticed the same discrepancy in the Patterson account, and the Williams Trust, and 3 others. Each time, my bonus was significantly lower than what our compensation structure promised. I decided to dig deeper. Late one evening, after everyone had gone home, I accessed the shared drive where all bonus calculations were stored. What I found made my blood run cold. There were 2 sets of files for every major account I managed. One set showed the actual returns and the bonuses I should have received. The other set, the one that had been used for my compensation, showed adjusted figures that somehow always resulted in lower payouts. The difference? Over $200,000 in the past 3 years alone. My heart was pounding as I traced the pattern. It wasn't just my accounts. Every senior portfolio manager had similar discrepancies. We were all being systematically cheated out of our rightful bonuses, but it got worse. Much worse. I couldn't sleep that night. By 6 a.m., I was back in the office, diving deeper into the files I had access to. What I discovered was a sophisticated fraud scheme that went all the way to the top. The missing bonus money wasn't disappearing. It was being redirected into a subsidiary account labeled Executive Performance Enhancement Fund. Every dollar stolen from the portfolio managers was being funneled directly to the senior executives. Marcus Sterling, our beloved regional director, had received an extra $1.2 million in performance bonuses last year. The CEO, Richard Blackstone, had pocketed nearly $3 million. All of it skimmed from the hard work of people like me. I printed everything I could, my hands shaking with rage and disbelief. How long had this been going on? How many careers had been stunted because people couldn't understand why their compensation never matched their performance? That's when I understood why I'd never been promoted. It wasn't about leadership material or fresh perspectives. It was about maintaining the fraud. Senior executives were easier to control. They were part of the scheme or benefiting from it. People like me, people who actually earned their money, were threats to the system. I was so lost in the documents that I didn't hear footsteps approaching my cubicle. Working early again, Luca? I spun around to find Marcus standing behind me, coffee in hand, friendly smile on his face. The same smile he'd given me while promoting Jennifer over me. Just catching up on some client reports, I managed, minimizing the window on my screen. That's what I like to hear. Dedication. That's why you're such a valuable member of our team. Valuable enough to steal from, apparently. Marcus walked away, and I realized I was in serious danger. If they discovered what I'd found, I wouldn't just lose my job. They'd destroy my reputation to protect themselves. I needed help, and I needed it fast. That afternoon, I reached out to the one person I thought might understand. David Chen, a former Nexus portfolio manager who'd left the company abruptly 6 months earlier amid rumors of poor performance. I'd never believed those rumors. David had been one of our best analysts, sharp as a knife and ethical to a fault. His sudden departure had never made sense to me. We met at a coffee shop in Lincoln Park, far from the financial district. I was wondering when someone would finally notice, David said after I explained what I'd discovered. His voice was bitter, but not surprised. You knew about this? Knew about it? Luca, they destroyed my career because of it. David's story was eerily similar to mine. Exceptional performance, promises of promotion, and bonuses that never quite matched what he'd earned. But David had done something I hadn't. He'd confronted Marcus directly.
I walked into his office with my calculations, David continued. Showed him exactly how much I was being underpaid. He looked at the numbers, nodded sympathetically, and promised to look into it. What happened? 3 days later, I was called into HR for a disciplinary meeting. Apparently, I'd been making inappropriate comments to female colleagues. 6 different women had filed complaints against me. My blood went cold. But that wasn't true. Of course it wasn't true. I'm gay, Luca. I've been with my partner for 8 years, but try proving that when 6 people are willing to lie about you. They offered me a choice: resign quietly with a neutral reference, or be fired for sexual harassment and have it follow me for the rest of my career. So you left. What choice did I have? I had a reputation to protect, a career to salvage. I took the neutral reference and found another job, making 40% less than what I was earning at Nexus. I stared into my coffee, processing this information. They hadn't just stolen our money. They'd developed a system to eliminate anyone who got too close to the truth. David, I said slowly, do you have any proof of what really happened to you? He smiled grimly and pulled out his phone. I recorded every conversation I had with HR. Illinois is a one-party consent state, so it's all perfectly legal. I've been waiting for someone like you to show up. Over the next 2 weeks, David and I worked together to build an airtight case against Nexus. His recordings revealed the depths of their corruption, not just the bonus scheme, but a pattern of fabricated disciplinary actions against anyone who asked too many questions. We identified 12 other former employees who'd left under suspicious circumstances over the past 4 years, all of them high performers, all of them asking questions about their compensation before their sudden departures. But we needed more than just testimony from disgruntled former employees. We needed current documentation that proved the ongoing fraud. That's where things got dangerous. I started staying late every night, photographing documents, copying files, and building our evidence base. Each night felt like I was walking a tightrope over a canyon. One wrong move, one suspicious glance from security, and my career would be over. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Sandra Reeves, Marcus's executive assistant. I'd always had a good relationship with Sandra. She'd been with the company for 15 years, longer than almost anyone except the executives. She was professional, discreet, and absolutely loyal to Marcus. Or so I thought. "I know what you're doing," she said one evening as I was leaving the office. My heart stopped. "I'm not sure what you mean, Sandra. The files, the late nights, the questions about compensation structures." She looked around nervously. "Meet me at the Starbucks on Michigan Avenue tomorrow at 7 a.m. Come alone." I barely slept that night. Was this a trap? Had Marcus discovered what I was doing and sent Sandra to gather evidence against me? But I had to take the risk. Sandra was already waiting when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with 2 cups of coffee. "I've been Marcus's assistant for 15 years, she began without preamble. "I've typed his emails, scheduled his meetings, and processed his expense reports. I know where every dollar goes." "Sandra, if this is about—" "It's about justice," she interrupted. "Do you know how many good people I've watched get destroyed by these men? People with families, mortgages, dreams, all sacrificed to make rich men richer." She slid a flash drive across the table. "Everything's on there. Bank records, email correspondence, the real compensation calculations. Everything you need to prove what they've been doing. Why are you helping me?"
Sandra's eyes filled with tears. "Because my daughter graduated from college last year. She's smart, talented, and wants to work in finance. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let her enter an industry where men like Marcus Sterling can destroy her career on a whim."
The flash drive contained more evidence than David and I could have gathered in months. Internal emails discussing the bonus redirection scheme. Spreadsheets showing exactly how much money had been stolen from each employee. Bank records proving where the money had gone. Most damaging of all were the emails about employee terminations. Marcus and Richard discussing who was getting too curious and needed to be eliminated. The fabricated disciplinary actions weren't random. They were coordinated attacks designed to protect the fraud. Armed with this evidence, David and I faced a choice. We could take everything to the FBI and hope for justice, but that would take years and might not result in any real accountability. Or we could go nuclear, take the story to the financial press, and force immediate action. The decision was made for us the next Monday morning. I arrived at the office to find security guards at my desk. "Mr. Clay," Marcus said, approaching with a somber expression, "I need you to come with me to HR. There's been a serious complaint filed against you." My stomach dropped. They were using David's playbook against me. In the HR conference room, I was presented with a thick folder of documentation. Apparently, I'd been accessing confidential files without authorization, staying in the office after hours without approval, and 3 different women had complained about my aggressive behavior in recent weeks.
"This is all fabricated," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to myself.
"These are serious allegations, Luca," the HR director said. "We're going to need to conduct a full investigation. You're suspended pending the outcome." "For how long?" "That depends on what we find." I was escorted from the building by security, my keycard deactivated, my computer access revoked. 12 years of my life reduced to a cardboard box of personal items and a suspension letter. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They thought I'd been acting alone. That afternoon, David and I walked into the offices of the Chicago Tribune's financial investigation team. By evening, Sandra had provided additional documentation that corroborated everything we'd discovered. The story broke 3 days later under the headline, "Nexus Financial Executives Accused of Massive Compensation Fraud." The article detailed everything: the stolen bonuses, the fabricated disciplinary actions, the systematic destruction of careers. Sandra's documents provided the smoking gun that transformed allegations into facts. By noon, Nexus's stock had dropped 30%. By the end of the week, federal investigators had seized the company's financial records and arrested Marcus Sterling and Richard Blackstone. The local news stations picked up the story. My phone rang constantly with calls from reporters, lawyers, and former colleagues who wanted to share their own stories of mistreatment at Nexus. But the call that mattered most came from Emma. "I saw the news," she said. "Are you okay?" "I think so," I replied. And for the first time in weeks, I meant it. The investigation moved quickly once federal authorities got involved. Bank records were subpoenaed. Witnesses were interviewed. The paper trail Sandra had provided made it impossible for the executives to claim ignorance. Marcus Sterling and Richard Blackstone were indicted on charges of wire fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering. Both pled guilty rather than face trial. Marcus received 4 years in federal prison. Richard got 7. The company itself was dissolved, its assets distributed to settle the class action lawsuit filed by current and former employees. I received $340,000 in back bonuses and damages, money I'd earned but never received. But the real victory came 6 months later when I was contacted by a headhunter representing Morrison Wealth Management, one of Chicago's most respected independent financial firms. "We've been following your story," she said. "We need someone with your integrity to head up our new ethical investment division." The position came with a 40% salary increase, equity in the company, and something Nexus had never offered: respect. 2 years later, I stood in my new corner office overlooking Lake Michigan, preparing for a meeting with potential clients who'd specifically requested to work with me after reading about the Nexus case. My division had grown from just me to a team of 12, and we'd attracted over $200 million in client assets by doing something revolutionary in the financial industry: treating people honestly. We published our compensation structure publicly. We provided detailed performance reports. We never promised returns we couldn't deliver, and we never took credit we hadn't earned. The business model worked because it was built on trust, not deception. David Chen had joined my team as senior analyst. Sandra Reeves had become our operations manager after her testimony helped secure the convictions against Marcus and Richard. Together, we'd built something that Nexus never was: a firm that actually served its clients' interests. That evening, I called my parents in Minneapolis to tell them about our latest client acquisition. "We're proud of you, son," my father said. "Not because you won, but because you did the right thing." It wasn't easy, I admitted. The right thing rarely is, but that's what separates the good ones from the rest. As I hung up the phone, I looked out at the city lights reflected on the lake. The same view I'd stared at for years in my old apartment, waiting for my life to begin. The difference was, now I understood something crucial. Your life doesn't begin when someone else decides you're worthy. It begins when you decide you won't accept anything less than what you deserve. Marcus Sterling had been right about one thing: I wasn't leadership material for a company like Nexus. I was leadership material for something much better. Today, 3 years after the Nexus scandal broke, I occasionally get emails from young financial professionals asking for advice. They've read the articles, seen the interviews, and want to know how to navigate an industry that still has its share of corrupt practices. My answer is always the same. Document everything, trust your instincts, and never let anyone convince you that accepting less than your worth is the price of keeping your job. Because here's what I learned from 12 years of being undervalued and 2 years of being respected. The companies that cheat you aren't doing you a favor by keeping you employed. They're doing themselves a favor by keeping you desperate. The moment you realize your worth, you become dangerous to people who profit from undervaluing you. Marcus Sterling taught me that lesson, though not in the way he intended. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to your career is having someone tell you that you're not good enough. It forces you to prove them wrong. And when you do, the victory isn't just personal. It's professional, financial, and spiritual. It's everything you deserved all along, but were too afraid to demand. That's the real story here. Not that bad people sometimes win, but that good people can fight back and build something better from the wreckage of their broken trust. My name is Luca Clay, and this is how I learned that integrity isn't just the right way to do business. It's the only way to sleep at night.